The notification pings at 2:47 in the morning. I grab my phone off the nightstand, squinting against the screen's blue glow. And there it is. A wire transfer confirmation. $41,000. Gone. My entire savings account, the one I've had since I was 19 years old, emptied in a single transaction to a name I recognize, but a person I barely know. I sit up in the dark, and the bedroom feels like it's tilting sideways, like the floor just decided to give up. My husband forced me to wire every last penny of my savings to his sister. Hey everyone, my name is Darcy Emberton. I'm 31, I work as a veterinary technician at a small animal clinic, and right now I'm sitting in a studio apartment that smells like fresh paint and possibility. But 11 months ago, I was living an entirely different life. Let me tell you how I got from there to here. I married my husband Grady when I was 26. We met through my coworker Britt, who'd been insisting for months that she had the perfect guy for me. She set us up on a blind date at a taco place, and I showed up skeptical and left completely charmed. Grady was the kind of person who filled up a room without trying. Big laugh, warm hands, always the most relaxed person at the table. He ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted, which looking back was probably a flag. But at the time, I mistook it for confidence, for decisiveness. We dated about a year and a half before he proposed. Simple ring, huge smile, a future that looked wide open. We moved into a 2-bedroom rental, started setting up a life together, and for a stretch it was good. Or more precisely, I was happy, and Grady was comfortable, and I spent a long time believing those two things were the same. Grady worked in logistics for a shipping company. Decent money, steady hours, but he was never good with it. He spent freely, didn't track expenses, and treated the concept of saving money like something responsible people did in movies. I was the opposite. Since I was 19, I'd been stashing money away with almost obsessive discipline. Every tax return, every bonus, skipping lunch twice a week so I could move an extra $20 into a savings account I never touched. By the time we got married, I had a little over $40,000 sitting in that account. That was my safety net, my emergency fund, my, if everything falls apart, I can still land on my feet money. It represented 12 years of discipline and sacrifice. I told Grady about it early in our relationship because I believed in being open. He nodded appreciatively. That's really smart, Darce. I wish I'd been that disciplined. His sister, Petra, lived about 4 hours away. She was 3 years younger than Grady, and she called him constantly. It was always something. Her car broke down, her landlord was raising the rent, her boyfriend left and took the furniture. Every few weeks brought a new catastrophe, and Grady always responded with his wallet. 20 here, 50 there, sometimes a couple hundred. She's my little sister, Darce. She doesn't have anyone else looking out for her. What am I supposed to do? Just ignore her? I'm not saying ignore her. I'm just saying maybe we should keep track of how much is going out. We're fine. It's not that much. Except it was. And it kept growing. Sometimes I realize I ignored things I shouldn't have. Like the way Grady never hesitated to wire Petra money, but got visibly irritated when I asked him to sit down and look at our own household budget. Like how our thermostat had been broken for 2.5 months. 2.5 months of me sleeping under extra blankets because the heat kept cycling off at midnight. And he kept saying, I'll look at it this weekend. But anytime Petra called with an emergency, he'd drive 4 hours on a Tuesday without blinking. His sister's discomfort was always urgent. Mine was always something he'd get to later. My coworker, Britt, the same one who set us up in the first place, was the first person to say out loud what I was trying not to think. We were on our afternoon break at the clinic, sitting in the back room under buzzing fluorescent lights, eating granola bars because neither of us had time for an actual meal. He sent her how much this time? Britt asked. $500 for a deposit on a new apartment. Darcy, that's the 3rd time in 4 months. She's going through a rough patch. Britt chewed slowly and gave me a look that was half compassion and half frustration. How long does a rough patch last before it's just someone else's lifestyle you're subsidizing? I didn't have a good answer for that, so I changed the subject to a Labrador with a torn ACL coming in for surgery the next morning. But the knot in my stomach stayed right where it was. There was also a situation at work that was quietly eating at me. Dr. Paulson, who owned the practice, had started dropping hints that he was considering selling. He was getting older, and the overhead was wearing on him. If new owners came in and restructured, positions like mine, the ones that weren't licensed vets, were vulnerable. I started picking up extra shifts and staying late, trying to prove I was essential. Some nights I'd get home so bone-tired that I'd fall asleep on the couch, still in my scrubs. Grady barely seemed to notice. When I told him I was worried about losing my job, he said, "It'll work out. These things always do." Like that was a strategy. Like optimism was the same thing as a plan. The faucet in our kitchen had been leaking for weeks, this slow, steady drip that echoed through the wall at night. Grady said he'd fix it. He didn't. It became this metronome of neglect, dripping away at 2 a.m. while I lay awake staring at the ceiling, and Grady slept like he'd been carved from stone. I learned that being consistently dismissed isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it sounds exactly like someone saying, "Don't worry about it," which really means, "I don't want to think about your problem right now." Then came the Thursday that changed everything. Grady sat me down at the kitchen table after dinner with a look on his face I'd never seen before. Serious, rehearsed, like he'd been practicing in the bathroom mirror. "Petra's in real trouble this time, Darce." "What kind of trouble?" "She owes money, a lot of money. Some of it to people who don't exactly send reminders, if you know what I mean." My stomach dropped like an elevator with its cables cut. "How much?" "40,000. The number sat in the air between us like a physical object. "Grady, you know that's exactly what I have saved." "I know." "No, just listen to me for 1 minute. No, Grady, that is my money. It's been mine since I was 19 years old. I saved it before we met. It is not a family emergency fund, and the answer is no." He went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, pressurized quiet. The kind where you can feel the words piling up behind someone's teeth. Then he leaned forward and said very carefully, "If something happened to Petra, if someone hurt her because you had the ability to help and chose not to, could you honestly live with that?" That sentence lodged itself between my ribs like a bone splinter. I told him I needed time to think. He told me Petra needed the money by Friday. It was Wednesday night. I barely slept. The faucet dripped. The ceiling stared back. I kept rotating the guilt like a stone in my hands, examining every angle. What if she was really in danger? What if I said no and something happened? But that money was mine. 12 years of mine. Thursday morning, I sat Grady down and told him clearly, no, I would not wire the money. I'd help Petra find resources, but I would not empty my safety net, period. He looked at me for a long time. "Okay," he said flatly, kissed my forehead, left for work. I went to bed that night feeling nauseated but solid. Then at 2:47 a.m., the notification pinged. Wire transfer confirmation. $41,000, my full balance plus the transaction fee, sent to Petra Emberton. Grady wasn't in bed. I found him downstairs in the kitchen, sitting at the table with his hands folded like a man in a hospital waiting room, staring at the wall. The faucet was dripping. Of course it was. That steady, maddening drip like a metronome counting down something I couldn't name. "What did you do, Grady?" "I had to, Darcy. You wouldn't listen." "How did you access my account?" "You used the same password for everything. Your mom's birthday and the year you graduated. I've known it for years." "You stole from me while I was sleeping 3 feet away from you. You took everything I had." "I saved my sister." "You stole from your wife." He looked at the table, not at me. He couldn't look at me. I called my bank at 6 in the morning, the second they opened. The representative was sympathetic but painfully clear. Since Grady had used the correct login credentials and was my legal spouse, the bank couldn't unilaterally reverse the transfer. I'd need to pursue it through legal channels. I hung up the phone and sat on the edge of the bed for 10 minutes, just breathing. I called Britt. She arrived at my door in 20 minutes, not 25. 20. She had coffee in one hand and a duffel bag in the other. "Pack what you need for a few days. You're staying with me tonight." "Britt, I can't just..." "He stole $41,000 from you while you slept 3 feet away from him. Yes, you can. Get your things." I packed. Grady stood in the hallway watching, arms folded, jaw tight. "This is a massive overreaction," he said quietly. I zipped the duffel and looked him in the eye. "You emptied my life savings at 3 in the morning without my knowledge or consent. This is the most measured, rational thing I've done in years." At Brit's apartment, I sat on her couch with her ancient basset hound crouton draped across my lap like a sad, warm quilt, and I called a lawyer named Inez. She was sharp, direct, and asked exactly the right questions. Was this a joint account? No, it's been mine since I was 19. His name has never been on it. Then what he did constitutes unauthorized access to a financial account. Darcy, you have a strong case. I learned something in those first few days. Being pressured into generosity isn't generosity. It's control wearing someone else's emergency as a costume. There was something else weighing on me that I hadn't told anyone. My mom had been calling more frequently, sounding tired, mentioning vague doctor's appointments and tests that were probably nothing. She was being evasive in a way that made my chest tight with worry. Normally, I'd have booked a flight out to see her, but I couldn't because I had no money, because my husband had taken it while I slept. Every ripple from what Grady did touched a different part of my life. Looking back, I see how slowly everything broke. It wasn't the wire transfer that destroyed my marriage. The transfer was just the final shove off a cliff I'd been inching toward for years. Every small payment to Petra, every time I voiced a concern and got told I was overreacting, every night lying awake to the sound of a leaking faucet that nobody cared enough to fix. Here's where the story took a turn I didn't see coming. While Inez was building my case, she suggested gathering evidence of Petra's actual financial situation to counter any claim of a genuine emergency. Britt and I spent an evening at her kitchen table with laptops open and croutons snoring between our feet. What we found was devastating. Petra's social media was completely public, and the life documented there was not the life of someone who owed $40,000 to dangerous people. There were resort vacation photos from 2 months earlier, shopping haul videos, a brand new car photographed in her driveway with a caption about fresh starts, an expensive salon appointment the week before the supposed crisis. She wasn't in debt, she wasn't in danger. The entire emergency had been fabricated. I called Grady. My voice was so calm it frightened me. There is no debt, Grady. I'm looking at Petra's social media right now. She bought a new car 2 months ago. She went on vacation. She got her hair done at a salon that charges more than I make in a day. There are no dangerous people. There is no emergency. A long, hollow pause. Then, she needed help starting a business, an online store. She didn't think you'd agree to give her startup money, so we framed it differently. You mean you lied? You invented dangerous people. You weaponized my guilt to steal my savings so your sister could fund a business idea. It wasn't supposed to go like this, Darcy. How exactly was it supposed to go? I just never check my bank statement? He had nothing. I didn't scream. Something inside me had gone cold and clear, like lake water in November, still and transparent all the way down. I didn't lose them all at once. I lost them in tiny surrenders. Every time I said, "It's fine," when it wasn't. Every time I swallowed my own instinct because someone else's crisis was louder than my boundary. Every time I trusted when the evidence told me not to. I filed for divorce. Grady contested it at first, called me dramatic, told his parents I was being vindictive and irrational. He even showed up at Brit's apartment once, standing on the doorstep looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Can we just talk?" he said. We talked. You stole from me anyway. I made a mistake, Darcy. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. You emptied my bank account in the middle of the night. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. Brit appeared behind me in the hallway. "She asked you to leave, Grady." He looked at Brit, then back at me, and something shifted in his face, like he was finally understanding that this wasn't a fight he could wait out. He left without another word. His mother called me exactly once after that. "Darcy, families take care of each other. That's how it works. Your son stole from me, Mrs. Emberton. He borrowed. You don't borrow something by taking it while someone sleeps." She never called again. Inez was meticulous. She documented everything: the unauthorized access, the fabricated emergency, the social media evidence, the complete timeline. When we presented it to the judge, the ruling was unambiguous. Full restitution, every cent, within 90 days. Failure to comply would result in contempt charges. Petra sent me exactly one text during the entire process. "You're tearing this family apart over money." I read it, set my phone on the counter, made dinner, never responded. I finally called my mom that weekend and told her everything. She didn't cry about the money. She cried because I'd been carrying this alone. "You don't have to handle everything by yourself, Darcy. That's not strength, that's just loneliness." Her tests came back clear, by the way. She was fine. But the scare shook us both into talking, really talking, for the first time in years. That was something real and good that grew out of the wreckage, and I'm grateful for it. The money came back in pieces over the next 5 months. 20,000 from Grady's retirement account, 12 from Petra, court-ordered and dragged out of her like teeth. The rest in monthly installments. Every single penny returned. Britt and I fell into a rhythm during those months that I'll always be grateful for. She'd cook dinner, usually some wildly experimental pasta situation that was either brilliant or borderline criminal, and I'd wash the dishes, and we'd watch terrible reality television until one of us drifted off on the couch. Crouton provided a constant soundtrack of snoring and deeply judgmental sighs. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the first time in years I felt like I could breathe all the way in. I signed the lease on my studio apartment last month. It's small and slightly rough around the edges. The paint near the window is still tacky when the humidity's up, but it's mine. I adopted a one-eyed cat from the clinic named Boomer. He sits on the windowsill every morning watching the parking lot with the intensity of a nature documentary narrator. The faucet in my kitchen works perfectly. I checked. Grady signed the final divorce papers quietly. Last I heard, Petra's online business never materialized. The money went to the car, the vacation, the salon appointments, the lifestyle she wanted someone else to fund. But that's not my story anymore. My story is here, in this apartment, with Boomer on the sill and a savings account that has one name on it: mine. Have you ever been made to feel selfish for protecting what belongs to you? I think more of us have lived through that than anyone wants to admit. If this resonated with you, drop a like and hit subscribe. Your stories in the comments are half the reason I keep telling mine.